Hi,
Hey, what's up?
nothing much. How's today going for you?
Solid day. Moved into my apartment on campus at college, so good moving stuff in the morning. Got home, so yeah.
Oh, what school do you attend?
I go to Rutgers in New Jersey.
Oh, okay. That's why I didn't recognize it for a second.
Gotcha.
Yeah, Waterloo, Canada.
I got you. I got you.
Yeah. Yeah, so we'll just let everyone else roll in. I think we have 4 minutes left, so we can get into it after that.
Yep, sounds good.
Oh, what's up, man?
Hey.
Hello.
Hi. Hey, Yash.
What's up?
And we'll just give it a few more minutes and then let the remaining panelists come in and then we can get started.
Yash, I want to take a photo. If I do a heart, will you finish it? The other half?
Yeah, are we how does it work?
Okay,
yeah.
You have to go just like that.
Right,
Okay.
cool.
Let me.
No.
Oh my god, I can't. How do I do this on my laptop? Okay, you have to get closer.
Okay,
closer
here. How about that?
That's
perfect. This way.
Okay. Oh okay. No, someone just joined.
Yes, thank you so much. Thank you. Bye.
Oh, I was so close to getting it.
We were close. Another time.
Hello, Jonathan.
Hey guys.
Yeah, what's up?
Nice to meet you all.
Likewise.
We're just waiting on one more panelist and then we'll get started. So how's everyone's weekends been?
So
pretty good.
Pretty good.
Sweet. It's sunny out today, so I was hoping to go for a walk after this. Been glued to my computer screen all day.
Where are you based out of right now?
Me, I'm in Toronto.
Nice.
What about you?
I'm in Vancouver right now.
Oh.
Yeah.
Arielle, did you hear about the forest fires?
No. Is there forest fires?
In Osoyoos?
Oh, like the ones that are, yeah. I mean, they're all over the maps and stuff.
Yeah, guess where I am today?
There?
Yeah, it came yesterday.
Nice.
It's worth it though.
Are you cabining right now?
Yeah, in like a park model, which is It's actually a lot bigger than I thought it was going to be. Also, I don't know if you guys saw my email before, but I sent over like some questions, and I was thinking whoever wants to answer just can jump in first.
Cool.
Yeah.
We can have a regular order. Rahul, if you want to go first, then I can go, and then Michelle, Arielle.
First, sounds good.
I'm gonna read Jonathan. Do you guys plan on repurposing any of this content for like later podcast videos, etc.?
We're gonna be doing the recordings, but at this time I'm unsure if we're gonna be posting them or if we're gonna be able to release them. But we do release like the highlights of the entire conversation and any quotes you guys make. So do some amazing ones. Yeah. Awesome. So I don't see Michelle in the list yet. We'll just give her like a minute or two more and then we can just get started.
She's in the chat.
She is? Michelle, you have to request or share your video and audio, and that way we'll be able to see you.
Hey guys, sorry about that.
There you go. Awesome. No worries. Okay, sweet. Let's get started. Hello, everyone. So today, if you've ever wondered how to break into venture capital as an undergrad, this panel is going to teach you and show you how the industry works and how you can get started and involved even as a college student. So I'd like you all to meet Yash Godiwala, the CEO at co-op student, I believe, at Fion Technologies, Rahul Rana, summer associate at Lux Captial, Michelle Quinn, intern at Floodgate, Arielle Lok, founder and VC analyst at Peco Produce Ripple Ventures, and Jonathan Hsu, intern analyst at Esplanade Ventures. So you guys can take it from here, and at the end, if we have any Q&A in the chat, I'll hop back on call and we can answer those questions as well. So take it from here, guys.
Yeah, thanks so much. Maybe before we get started, maybe if everyone wants to spend, a minute or two providing a bit more background into your intros and kind of your way into VC.
Sorry, what's the order again?
I think it
I can get
was
started, and then Rahul, Michelle, Arielle, you can come in last.
Okay, sounds good.
Sounds good. Thanks, Jonathan. Yeah, I'm Yash. I'm chief of staff at Fion Technologies, a deep tech startup using machine learning to stop wildfires. Previously, I founded a fashion tech platform that bootstrapped its way to 75K in assets under management, and I worked in early stage venture at a couple different firms on the platform investing sides. Super excited to chat with you guys today, and hopefully offer some insight.
Cool.
Awesome. Hey everyone, I'm Rahul. I'm currently a summer associate at Lux Capital. It's a $4 billion deep tech VC in New York and California. We do everything from space to bio to nanotech and all sorts of hard sciences and frontier tech. I'm also the author of Making Moonshots. It's a book about moonshot companies, deep tech startups, essentially, philosophies, mindset, strategies that are conducive to building moonshot companies, really impactful kind of deep tech startups. Also working on a biotech company sort of within Lux, so that's pretty cool. And doing all sorts of things in space, bio, climate, and some crypto. So yeah.
All right, my turn. Hi, everyone. I'm Michelle. I'm going to be a junior at Stanford this fall, and I'm a CS major. So I've always been interested in tech and entrepreneurship, and that's how I learned about VC. And in terms of my experience exploring VC, I was an intern at Floodgate, which is a VC firm that's kind of generalist, but focusing on consumer and enterprise and knowledge management. And I was an intern there from January to June. So it was quite a bit. I'm no longer with them, but I definitely learned a lot. And so, happy to share my learnings and hopefully it helps.
Hi, everyone. Just wrapping everything up. I'm Arielle, going into my third year at McGill University in Montreal. I'm currently at Shopify as a corporate development intern, so doing all of the strategic acquisitions and investments there. I am also the founder of Pecco Produce. Literally just finished handing off all of our stuff to our drivers just now. We deliver like imperfect fruits and vegetables to reduce food waste. I was at Ripple Ventures before doing enterprise SaaS. And then I also was at District Ventures Capital for around a year, closing all the deals on Dragon's Den season 15. So lots of food and beverage deals there. I have a lot more, but I mean, we have the whole panel to talk about stuff. So nice to meet you all.
For sure. And I can go last really quickly, I guess. So my name's Johnny. I'm going to be the moderator for the panel today. So asking the questions and just facilitating the conversation. I'm heading into my final year studying biochemistry at the University of Waterloo. For the past like 2.5-ish years, I've been on the investment team at Front Row Ventures, which is a student-run VC fund that invests only in student entrepreneurs in Canada. And also this summer interning at a fund called Esplanade Ventures, which is specifically focused on health tech and healthcare. So maybe we can start with kind of a general question. What is it that you guys like about VC? What is that kind of gravitated you towards this industry as something you want to get into? And then maybe it doesn't have to be one person giving the answer to all of this, but talk about kind of what the experience is like actually working at a VC fund and sort of the day-to-day responsibilities.
Sure, thanks, Johnny. So I can take the former part of that question, and then I'll let Rahul jump in with the rest. I think the most exciting part of venture for me specifically is the differentiation between other parts of finance and it specifically. So for example, in investment banking, sure, you'll be able to take on a large part of these deals. So doing mergers and acquisitions, taking a look at which companies are going to go public, et cetera, but you're never going to be able to give it a shot to influence these deals. So whether the company does well or doesn't do well, that's not entirely in your power. Whereas in venture, one specific investment from a specific firm made by one specific person can change the entire course of the company. So I think the impact that you're able to have just as one person at one firm is truly extraordinary. But my path into venture was a little bit unconventional. I've worked at some earlier firms, and I'm sure Rahul has a lot more conventional experience with some structured firms. So I'll let him take it from here.
Of course. So how I got into venture was essentially writing my book, actually. The book I published just this past December got me hired at Lux. And so to the second part of your question, what's the day-to-day looking like? It's really all over the place, and that's one of the reasons why I love VC is that no day is the same thing. I know a lot of people say that for their jobs, but what I mean by that is, one day I'm going to be, talking to a space company, the next day talking to a longevity company, next one talking to some sort of, energy company, and it's all these really just really impactful kind of things, and these are the startups that are actually building the future. Again, that's a cliche that everyone says, but in VC and specifically in the side of VC that I'm in, sort of frontier tech and hard sciences, it's actually very, very true. And some of the companies that Lux has invested into, I mean, they've solved natural disasters, they've reduced human suffering to some extent. They make drugs that save lives. So that's really why I love VC, and specifically the type of VC that I do. So yeah.
Okay, if we're going in order, I'm next. I agree with all the benefits that have been talked about already, but maybe something new. I learned a lot about how to be a founder from interning in VC. So the whole reason, like I said earlier, the whole reason why I learned about VC actually was because I was in a hackathon last year, and then that became a little bit more serious. And then I started to seriously consider, how to create a startup. And I learned that there's a lot of financial, technical concepts that you have to know. And I just didn't know any of it, but that's all bundled within VC. So in my internship at Floodgate, I really got to learn all the basic but necessary fundamentals of starting a new business, and things from what are series, Series A, Series B, to term sheets. These are all things that you have to know in order to start a startup. And it's really hard to find the resources to learn that from. So I learned that VC, being a VC, is the best place to get exposure. And I probably learned the most on how to found a startup from my internship rather than classes on how to be a founder.
Yeah, it kind of sucks being last because you always all say things that I want to say.
We don't have to go and stay in order next time, but
oh yeah, no, I'm okay with it. I'm vibing with it. You all are a lot more eloquent. But to hop onto everybody's points, I mean, I think once you get into VC and start talking to founders, there's like a feeling that you get where you really want to be on the other side of the table. I mean, I went into finance thinking that I was just going to be doing deals for my entire life, and then talking to so many like inspirational people kind of just pushes you into that direction. I don't think if I didn't go into VC, I don't think I would have ever started PECO or joined all of these random ass accelerators. And it was really kind of the thing that, you know, it brings you to the right place no matter what. So VC is just the place to be.
Mm-hmm. Maybe if we could take a step back here, I feel like coming in as like, definitely for me, like coming out of high school and starting first year and second university, I didn't really know VC was even an industry that you could have a career in. And I feel like VC commonly gets lumped into this category of finance where it's like mixed with investment banking, mixed with private equity, mixed with growth equity. Maybe if we could just spend like a couple minutes identifying like what is it that makes VC different from like investment banking or some of the other like traditional more finance streams.
For sure, if we want to stay in order. So yeah, like I mentioned previously, I think the main differentiation is the impact that you're able to have. Venture tends to work with a lot of earlier stage companies where private equity and growth stage, they might range from a company doing 5 mil in revenue per year up until $1 billion or more. Whereas venture, you're talking with a lot of companies that just have an idea and a piece of paper that they wrote it down on, maybe a logo they sketched down. They don't really have a proper streamlined way of, hey, this is how we're going to do things. But they do have this kind of internal idea of, all right, this is what we would like to build. Here's the mission we have, et cetera, et cetera. And so with venture, you're really able to get a lot more hands-on with these companies, work with the founders one-on-one and trying to develop their vision for the world, as opposed to develop their vision for how their company should be run. It's a small differentiation in, you know, when you say it out loud, but when it comes down to it, working with the founder and saying, hey, I want to build this company with you and I want to really help you change the world is a lot different from, I want to help you get to the next round, or I want to make sure that this merger and acquisition goes smoothly. So talking about it from a more holistic point of view, as opposed to just financial or just business related.
Yeah, honestly, everything that Yash said is pretty solid. I'd add that, you know, sort of in VC, obviously it's, you know, lesser, you know, less sort of check sizes and whatnot compared to private equity or growth equity and everything. But thing about VC is that being on the ground floor of the companies that you're sort of you know, investing into, sort of, you know, supporting and everything, VCs tend to have more than just sort of like the finance, I guess, like, you know, value add, as people say. So, you know, you could help them obviously with you know, raising, you know, later rounds. You could help them with legal and marketing and PR and sales and all these different things that you just wouldn't do as a, you know, growth equity or private equity sort of you know, firm and whatnot. So I think it's just being more hands on, whether that's for, you know, for good or for bad. But yeah.
Along those lines, the main distinction in my point of view is that VC has to do with startups in the very early stage, whereas IB is, you know, later stage. And so I think that's exciting. I mean, it's literally in the name, venture capital. You're working with new ventures. So I think that's really exciting because, yeah, there's a lot more autonomy. Like you get to decide what the relationship and what the company is in the very early stage and see it grow. Whereas maybe like IB is later, much later stage. So it's more about numbers rather than the people and the ideas and the innovation.
Yeah, I think that's really cool just because, I mean, you can literally just invest in a person as well. Like if there's someone that you really, really believe in and they don't even have a company, you can still do it. And that's like kind of the beauty of venture.
Yeah, I think Rahul, you mentioned something interesting earlier about how you kind of broke into VC by writing your book, and then that kind of landed you your internship with Lux Capital. I know, especially in Canada, like the VC ecosystem is very small and tight knit, and it's a very competitive recruitment cycle, and funds hire, you know, minimal amounts of interns every recruiting cycle. As kind of undergrad students that don't have strong experiences or kind of deep experience in VC, what are some ways that you could stand out to kind of prove, hey, VC is something I'm actually interested in, and help you kind of stand out amongst some of the people that are just like, hey, this is a cool thing to get into. I like startups, I like tech, I like entrepreneurship. Because I like writing a book, that's pretty cool. So wanted to hear your thoughts on that.
Of course. So yeah, so regarding VC and everything, so I guess a little bit more about my background is that I sort of come from like the research, sort of the science side of things. I grew up on that. My dad, he works at this lab, and so I was just, you know, inspired by him, of course. And you know, everything sort of middle school, high school was just, you know, geared towards science and whatnot. So why I chose like specifically, you know, frontier tech / deep tech VC is because of that. So I would say it is different for what type of VC you want to do. But I guess I'll go general first and go specific. So in general, my best piece of advice is just to do the job to get the job, because you don't really need the title, VC, associate, analyst, whatever, at whatever firm to help founders, right? To connect them to other investors, to give them advice, do whatever, right? So honestly, like I know tons of people who me included, because you can consider my book to be this, this like year-long due diligence process for all the, all sorts of moonshot companies, right? If you want to really consider it that, like lots of people I know, they get the job by just doing it, right? Helping connect their friends to various sort of investors, get sort of curated kind of like deal flow channels, and maybe starting up a blog or some sort of publication, things like that, creating content, and doing research and putting out good research around a certain field that you enjoy. So it all comes just down to doing a job to get the job. Specifically for the part of VC that I'm in, right? Deep tech and whatever. Again, I had that sort of the research background. I wrote this book on all sorts of deep tech kind of companies. My specialty sort of lie in space, life sciences, and sort of climate and all that. So that's where I told the firm, like, I could add the most value there. Also just in general, and I guess this just goes back to I guess like the question on like how can like an intern be actually helpful and sort of get hired and whatnot. So one thing that I would do to sort of impress the partners is just again, obviously, do the deal flow, right? Build sort of your investment filter, in terms of evaluating companies and doing all these cool things, but also help them with the platform side of things, right? Help them with marketing and PR stuff. Like that's what I'm helping my firm with, right? Content creation, things like that. Help them with various other things besides the investing process. And you'll realize that many firms want to do all these cool projects, maybe start communities or start some sort of content series, things like that, but they just don't have the bandwidth, right? All the partners are doing their investment work, all the ops people doing, obviously an operating fund itself. And so that's another thing that I did to get sort of hired at Lux. I told the managing partner who hired me, I was like, hey, I'm doing the research into deep tech and moonshots and all this good stuff, but I could also help you guys with content creation and, reaching out to Gen Z and, building community and whatever may be around the firm. And at the end of the day, he ended up hiring me. So yeah.
Anybody else want to add anything to that?
Yeah, join a startup. Like I'm telling you, like startups will always need help. If you reach out and be like, hey, is there any task that you need me to do? Chances are there probably is. And if there's something that you're really interested in any industry, I think if there's a company that really stands out to you, message them and be like, what up? But I think that's a really cool way to get the actual like hands-on operating experience that a lot of VCs lack nowadays. So that's a really cool way to stand out.
One more thing that I want to add is Twitter. So this applies to like most jobs, but I think the VC bubble is particularly big on Twitter. Just tweeting a lot of thoughts that you have, and people will notice it. So I think maybe even, sorry if this is shallow, but like the follower count to VCs, maybe it's just a really good channel for you to build a reputation on. And again, many VCs are on Twitter, so they will recognize it. And then something that Rahul said that I want to +1 on is writing is also a very valuable skill in VC. So a lot of VCs can talk well, and also that translates into writing. So Twitter is like short form, but also making a blog, Medium, Substack. These are all channels. If you do it consistently and you do it well, you will stand out.
Definitely. I'll just double down on everything that they said. I think one specific part that Arielle mentioned is super underrated, which is joining a startup. I think in today's world of venture capital, everyone really gets super into the finance part of it. Since it is a finance STEM industry, everyone thinks that, hey, I need to get a 4.0 from an Ivy League college. But if you look around this room, like a lot of the people are operator first, right? They're more focused towards, hey, I wanted to learn about a specific industry or run a certain company. And that's why I joined venture. So I think rather than trying to rush into venture and, invest in the hottest startups and, get that really attractive salary right away, focus on doing things that are scrappy and build something that actually is meaningful. A lot of the best venture capitalists will actually admire you more as a better operator as opposed to a solid investor that you might be. The investing world just tends to be really saturated, and all that you can compare is based on your reputation and the returns that you're going to be able to bring in. And when you're a student, you're not going to be able to hit either of those marks. So it just makes more sense to, start a startup and build your reputation that way.
Yeah, I think it's definitely like very powerful because I feel like as students when we're interviewing for jobs, like we have the luxury or the leeway to say like, hey, I don't have deep experience in this space, but I'm very interested in it. But I think it's very different if you look at one student who just says, hey, I think startups is cool, and this specific industry, let's say like healthcare, is super interesting to me. And that's all they say, versus another student that's there interviewing and says, hey, I'm really interested in VC. I really like healthcare. Here's my Medium or Substack of like 10 blogs I wrote about the healthcare industry. Here's my book that I wrote about, moonshots in healthcare. I think there's a lot of different ways to prove your interest that would make you stand out. So I think those are some awesome answers. I guess moving on to the next question here. What do you think are some important skills to learn to be a successful VC?
Do we want to
Not
go back to the
everybody
same
at
order?
once.
All right, I can go ahead and get started. I wouldn't say there's any particular, there's a big debate in venture right now, which is like, hey, do you need to be a specialist or a generalist, or what specific skills that do you need to know? I think there's no short answer, right? No matter what it comes down to, you can be an amazing operator or have previously worked at DoorDash since the start of the company, but you still might be lacking things that it takes to be a fabulous investor. In short, I think it's a combination of the soft skills and hard skills. And going back to what I said previously, being an operator first really gets all of those skills in check. I think there's a thing that goes around that says, there's a reason that a lot of founders are serial founders, which is the reason that their skills can't be replicated almost anywhere else. You start a company and you have the intention of, all right, I'm starting from ground zero and I'm building this company and I need to do hiring, recruiting, payroll, and I have to run everything. And when you try to move into a really designated position like a COO at another company, that might not work as well. So I think what it really comes down to is being able to communicate in a manner in which you're able to communicate your ideas and also resonate with the founder you're talking to, being able to share their vision and differentiate, all right, this is someone who's just talking versus this is someone who's going to be able to put a team together. It's kind of like gut feeling where you can walk into a room and determine whether or not this is a good place to be. But it's something that you kind of just build up as pattern matching as you become a better investor overall.
Definitely, yeah. I'd agree with Yash, and sort of the way that I break it down in terms of building skills to be a good VC. So I think about it in like four different kind of things. So the first one's being good at sourcing and diligence, right? Knowing the background of whatever industry that you're working in, having good deal flow channels, things like that. Knowing the right people, building your network, things like that. Building brand, whatever it may be. Second thing is picking winners. So knowing what good signals are in a company, an investment in a person, whatever it may be. Third thing is convincing them, and that's a huge thing. A big sort of misconception of VCs that founders are chasing VCs. It's actually the other way around. Most VCs are chasing the best founders, and so you really have to be good at convincing people to take your money. And then fourth thing is sort of helping companies after the fact. And again, it goes back to being a value add VC. Again, another cliche that everyone says, but it is true. You do want to help your portfolio companies do the best possible thing, or at least be transparent about what your firm is good at, or what you yourself are good at, and what you can sort of help with. So I think if you can master those four things, you're going to be an all-star VC. Most associates, most like analysts, are only good at one of those things. And so that's why, like me personally, I've been trying to focus on those four things all at once, to sort of hopefully get have a future in VC. So yeah.
I'm gonna share three skills that I think, from my experience, were really important. So one is writing. So again, going back to like Twitter and sharing your thoughts on short form and long form posts is really important to build your reputation. And then also like internally, you have to write a lot of memos and then write a lot of these are like 10-page research on due diligence for a company. So you just need to be able to write well and a lot. The second one is you have to be opinionated about many different industries. Maybe this is just because I worked at a generalist firm, so we looked at all kinds of industries. But for example, I would get like a social media deck, and then next day I would get like a enterprise deck, and I would have to like give an opinion on whether we should, go forward or not. And so having exposure or knowledge on a lot of industries is very helpful. And third, finally, is you have to be strong enough and also care about building relationships. So what I mean by that is you have to have like the stamina to do a lot of back-to-back Zoom meetings. And maybe when things go back to normal, you also have to like host events to meet people and attend events. And I hear a lot that when you're a VC, your personal life and work life are basically like together. So even when you're hanging out with a friend, there's still kind of like that the intent behind it, that maybe that friend will become the next founder of a unicorn. So you also want to build a strong relationship to go forward. So having that kind of mindset and that kind of merge between work and personal life, I think that is a skill.
I think just one skill that I think is really important that hasn't been mentioned yet is also just being an overall good person. In VC, like it is a very it is a people's kind of job. You're going to be talking to people all the time, and it'd be kind of a shitty investor if you were like not like a good person to reach out to. How can your portfolio companies even trust you to be part of their cap table if they can't even have a conversation with you? How can they reach out if they are struggling? Like, you need to be like kind of approachable in that way. I mean, everyone in this call is, so, future's bright.
Right. I guess kind of going back how we were talking about, getting operating experience at a startup and then joining a VC is very beneficial. Are there other kind of, let's say, common career paths that somebody could take that would eventually lead them into VC? Like, what are some common paths you're seeing, and why do you think that might be the case in terms of like the skill set you're building and whatnot?
I think this is kind of a loaded question in the sense that there's no one path, right? In today's world, we're in a really globalized sense where, people will graduate with a philosophy degree and also end up being a mechanical engineer 13 years down the line. That's just how things are because, you can pick up a skill at any given point. And since we've evaluated just now, you don't need one particular hard science degree to become a venture investor. Sure, if you're working in the sense that Rahul is in deep tech and you need to be knowing what aerospace companies do, and elementary knowledge of physics or aerospace is kind of just warranted. But I wouldn't say there's any specific like, hey, you need this piece of paper to determine, hey, you're competent enough to invest in this sector. So I think I once had a scout that I knew who did over maybe 12 or 13 different routes of how you can get into venture. You can start in investment banking, work your way to consulting, end up in venture. But, it would be probably easier to list the ways that you couldn't get into venture, right? At the end of the day, it just comes down to developing those skills and creating a large network. Once again, going back to what Rahul mentioned, the first part of being a venture investor is I need to have a large network where I can tap into them and realize, hey, there are 4 or 5 people that I know that are currently raising around so that I can invest in them and make sure that I can actually accelerate their future. If you're not able to have that network and have a large group of people that you can tap into and say, these are the people that are starting a company, that's just not going to succeed. That's kind of step one, to have that network to tap into. There's definitely lots of other points, but I'll let these folks take it over.
Yeah, of course. So similarly, there's tons of paths like we actually I can go on and on, but obviously, the main ones are maybe going from a startup into VC, big tech company into VC, big finance to VC, whatever it may be. Again, I come from the science background, so I know tons of people who started in academia, as researchers or whatever it may be. Again, come to VC from there. Obviously, founder into VC. I know people from government who came into VC because they had a good sort of grasp sort of the knowledge for like the regulatory side of things. I know people from like let's say like the African or like Latin American scene, sort of VC scenes are sort of popping right now, and so people who are just knowledgeable about those spaces, like they're getting sort of VC jobs. You can go on and on and on. Like honestly, like so long as you have expertise and a network in some sort of field that's sort of has startups being birthed in that field, like you're golden. You just got to differentiate yourself, put yourself out there and be a good person. So yeah.
Sorry. Personally, I noticed for I guess older people, so like outside of graduation, a lot of paths into VC are from consulting. So a lot of people from McKinsey or typically go into VC. That was something that I didn't expect learning more about VC, but that's something I definitely noticed. And then also, going into a startup first, and then the startup succeeds. Then typically the person, if they don't want to go back into operating, then they do VC to stay inside the startup world. But as a student, I noticed a lot of students who are interested in tech, but also humanities. Those people tend to also go to VC. And I think that's a good representation of what VC is, which is basically a mixture of STEM technology, because you need to understand tech startups, and then also humanities in the sense that you need to recognize leadership and be able to speak on things and have opinions, and build relationships with people.
I think the real question is, where do people go after VC? If you look at a lot of like co-venture capitalists, they end up going and like joining like a startup that they invested in, or, you know, seeing a trend in the industry and them deciding to create their own stuff. And I think that speaks a lot about just like, I was about to say we live in a society, but it just speaks a lot about like how much like conviction you have to have in order to be in like this industry. But yeah, I mean, please join startups. It's really fun.
Yeah, if we can kind of switch gears now and dive a bit more specifically into the recruitment process for VC funds. I think everybody knows, like, you know, getting your name out there and networking is very important, but what does that recruitment process look like for VC funds? And how would you, or what advice would you have to nail the initial application, the interview, or case studies and whatnot?
I think we've established that both Rahul and I probably have a more unconventional path into venture. So I'm sure we'll tell you the same thing, which is the best jobs in venture aren't going to be posted on any sort of job board. And they're just going to be right there up for grabs, where any sort of partner, any sort of leadership position at a venture firm, they're going to need help, right? There's always voids in the firm. Like you mentioned earlier, you can do content creation, marketing, PR. There's all sorts of things that a venture firm needs besides just investing, right? So outside of the financial point of things, where, all right, you need to set up the fund and then you have companies you've invested in that you need to maintain them. There's all sorts of different things that is like, what is the external facing image going to be for this brand? When founders first come to us, how do we know that this firm is going to be a right fit for them? And there's all sorts of different processes that you need to establish for this firm. So I wouldn't say that there's any specific case study or any, you know, specific process that you have to go through to get into any firm. It's more, can you nail down the skills that we've established earlier, which is, you know, first being a good person, second, you know, being a good relationship oriented person in general. And the list goes on. But at the end of the day, there's no, I think venture is one of these unique routes in the past couple of years, exceptionally, where you don't need to graduate from an Ivy League university to be able to get into venture, right? You can just go in and prove that you are the best person for this job. And not only by doing, you know, showing them a resume, but actually doing the job yourself. So for some people, it might be writing a book, and for other people, it might be just doing the job itself and saying, hey, I know you guys have kind of a website that was a little bit outdated and maybe you needed to, you know, clean it up. You can fix it right then and there, right? There's no one specific thing that you need to do to be a good venture capitalist like we've established, but I'm sure the rest of the folks here could talk a little bit more about the more conventional path and how there's actual, you know, recruitment processes and case studies that you need to ace to get into that firm.
Yeah, so definitely would agree with Yash. Like, times are changing, and I think we're definitely moving away from like the more, like, you know, consulting finance kind of interview kind of process. I think the best thing to do is just to prove, again, like to sort of, you know, prove your worth, is to do the job to get the job. And if you actually are making results, you know, building a network, all this good stuff, then they're going to hire you, of course. But to actually answer your question, so I know some firms do still have like a, you know, formal sort of recruiting process, and it's usually like, you know, maybe 3 to 5 rounds or so. You know, it's you know, having conversations with partners, associates, whatever may be. You know, they're going to be testing your skills, seeing, you know, whatever sort of mental models you use, what you look for in companies, things like that. You know, how you built your investment filter and how you sort of, you know, use it. They're going to be asking you questions on specific industries if you're going into that sort of like a non-generals kind of VC kind of thing. Or just like, you know, seeing where your skills lie and see if the sort of the firm sort of, you know, fits with you. So there's tons of different things. I just said that times are really, really changing. And honestly, like, I got my job based on a cold email. Like, I know tons of other people who just, you know, had this like crazy sort of path into it. I honestly have never done an interview, I've never done like a formal sort of interview for like a job in my life. I've only ever made opportunities for myself, and I mean, it's working for me. It's working for tons of people I know who are getting, again, like students and, you know, sort of college, you know, age kinds of people getting into VC. So I'd rather focus on that and sort of differentiate yourself through that, instead of, you know, relying on interviews to sort of, you know, show your worth, I guess, to a VC firm. So yeah.
I think the theme of this question is kind of VC is an industry that's very unstructured. So that's why Yash said, and I totally agree with this, like, it's hard to find opportunities because, you know, VC firms don't really do it traditionally. Like, they don't post it on these public forums. Rather, it's more like internal. But on the other hand, because it's unstructured, it creates a lot of opportunities for you to be creative and stand out and find those opportunities for yourself, like Rahul said, creating opportunities for himself. So in my experience, I've noticed that people get VC opportunities from on Twitter. Actually, I've seen a lot of posts, like right now, people are hiring like summer interns. So they just post on Twitter for some reason. And I don't see those opportunities elsewhere. So that's one forum. Another one is cold emailing. I've seen that help a lot of friends out. But personally for me, how I got the internship at Floodgate was I had a mentor who was more like a friend to me, and she was a VC at Air Angels. And I asked her, like when I realized I wanted to do an internship in VC, I asked her like, what are opportunities out there? And the thing is, VCs are very friendly. Like that's one of the great things about VCs. Again, it goes back to like you have to be a good person to be a VC. VCs, like their job is to help people. That's really like that's the essence of the job. So they make some of the best mentors, at least in my experience. So this particular person was, when I told her like I want to find an internship at VC, she was like, I will be on the lookout for you. And it just so happened that she was in a Slack group with Sean, who's an associate at Floodgate, and he posted, we're hiring right now. And then she sent that opportunity to me and I applied. And so I utilized, I guess my network. I don't really like that word, but just ask mentors in your life to help you find opportunities because they have eyes everywhere.
Yeah, and just to give a structured answer, I never had like a formal interview ever or like a job board kind of thing. But this is what I've heard. The best times or when VCs kind of look to hire in full-time positions, some things to look out for is like one, if they recently raised a new fund, most likely they're going to need people to help them actually, deploy the capital. So if you see like a firm that you really like that has recently raised, might be a good idea to shoot them over a cold email and be like, hey, I saw y'all have some money. Wanna give me some or let me invest some of that for you? And then another cool opportunity to look out for is if an analyst or an associate leaves a position, they're probably going to look for someone to fill that gap. And that's also where you can see these like hidden opportunities. But I mean, other than that, just like really stand out in cold email. I got my first venture job by sending, I don't know if y'all do like skincare, but I was going into like a consumer VC firm. So I sent like my 10-step Korean skincare routine and a photo of all my products and then me putting it on. And the guy was like, bro, what is this? But because of that, I was able to be forwarded to the right person and make the right connection.
I remember you telling me that story. I guess I think we've chatted about this a ton, but are there any other, I guess, like common misconceptions that you think people have towards VC as a career and what the kind of day-to-day responsibility looks like, aside from a lot of the stuff that we talked about already?
I don't mind jumping in first so Yash doesn't hog all of the good answers. But a misconception about VC is like, they say it's like really fun and exciting, and it is. But there's also a lot of boring things that you have to do. Like there's a lot of like administrative tasks. Honestly, deal sourcing can also be a pain in the ass sometimes if you don't have like the right networks and you're kind of like scouring through databases and stuff. And then I'm not the biggest fan of writing. I'm sure Michelle is, but I'm not the greatest writer either. But going in and like writing like hundreds of memos for deals that might never even like make the table. You have to do that. And it's just something that comes with the job.
For sure. I guess I can jump in. Doubling down on what Arielle said, I think it's not always just going to be, memo writing and trying to send the VC the best kind of deal you can. I think a misconception that I had when I was entering venture was if you send enough partners good enough deals that you think are good, eventually they'll have to offer you a job just because you're offering them so much value. And that's just not the case. At best, you're just going to be a Twitter reply guy for them, where you're just sending them deals over and over, and you're hoping that one of them will eventually do something, and that you'll be able to scoop up some carry off of it. We've kind of established beforehand that there are other ways of providing value to firms. So it's kind of a matter of whatever you can do best. It's very rare that you're going to hit the mark and become a better investor or have a better network than these partners who have been running this fund for 15 years. So try to see if you can provide value in unique and creative ways. I know there's a lot of good blogs by this. Rahul and I have a buddy named Jack McClelland, and he has a great article on this as well. And I'm sure we can share resources afterwards. But definitely scour the web for lots of different unique ways that VCs or students can help VC firms. It's not restricted to, hey, I'm going to write a memo about my friend's company and just keep sending it over and over until something happens. But yeah, Michelle, Rahul, would love to hear your thoughts as well.
Yeah, of course. So definitely would agree with you, both Arielle and Yash. I know I said before, like one of the biggest things I've realized is that VCs are chasing the startups and the best startups, and it's not the other way around. That was like a kind of a reality check for me when I sort of entered the industry. So I'd say that's like the biggest thing that I sort of experienced. Also, the fact that lots of people think that VC is sort of like this like retirement job where you're just cutting checks to whoever sort of emails you or whatever it may be. Like it really isn't. It's a really sort of active, sort of even like proactive kind of job to have, or at least the people who do it well. And so that's one thing I would say is that it's not something where you could just like sit around and sort of wait for people to come to you. It's in fact the exact opposite. So yeah.
I want to echo what Arielle said because it resonated with my experience, which is it's a lot of tedious tasks, especially for interns and analysts who are just beginning their journey in VC. I think it's not as glorious as it seems, because I think a lot of the stories of like what partners are up to in VC is what is showcased a lot. And again, those are just for partners, but everyone else is doing those things of like Zoom meetings with founders, because you never know, the next meeting could be with someone who's really special, so you don't want to miss a meeting. And writing a lot of things, like writing long memos for a startup, and it turns out you might not even invest in them. So I think it's a lot of busy work. You do learn a lot from it, and you gain perspective, but definitely not 100% of your work is going to be, actually contributing to the firm's like core success. So I think it's important to keep that in mind. If you really like Zoom meetings and networking and research, then this is a good fit for you.
I was going to add one more point. I don't think people realize how sad it can be when you really, really believe in a company and you can't invest, even just because like your firm just doesn't invest in this certain industry, or if there's just like any like small thing that kind of like gets in the way, or someone just takes your spot. And it's actually heartbreaking, like when you like put all of like your effort into like talking to them and like you really, really believe in them, but you just don't have the money to give them. That happened to me a lot, and I was honestly, every single time it happened, I would just kind of like sit down and just put my face in like a pillow and just go, but like it comes with the job.
I'm gonna add to that. It's thinking about VC, and again, it goes back to the question how it's different from IB and private equity and everything. Is that it's actually kind of emotional in that you're funding people, right? Their livelihoods. Like these people are not going to give themselves a salary and things like that. So you really just want to invest in everyone and sort of help them. And so when one of the companies that you really, really believes in just like does not go through, like it kind of sucks. And I could name so many other things that it kind of does get emotional. And so obviously the mark of a good investor is to not be not be sort of swayed by that, but also like having like a good balance between sort of emotional intelligence and also everything else. But nonetheless, I do think it is really important to note that. Also, another thing that a lot of people do think, and it's just completely wrong, is that VC is not like a get rich quick kind of scheme. It's in fact the exact opposite. Like you're gonna have to wait sometimes 10 years to get some sort of semblance of a carry check or whatever, and that's probably not even gonna happen. Like what I forgot the exact statistic, like 95 or 90 whatever percent of startups fail. There's super long time horizons. Most funds also fail. Most funds, I think like 80% of VC firms perform worse than investing in the stock market, the S&P 500 or whatever it may be. Like it's just not you're probably not going to make money, and you're probably better off making money in different industries. So it's one of those things where if you're going to do it, like you got to do it because you actually enjoy it and no other reason. So
yeah, that's a really good point. I feel like sometimes people forget that venture is an extremely risky asset class compared to the other instruments out there. So yeah, that's a really good point. I guess last question before I do want to save some time because I'm seeing some questions coming on the chat here. But maybe one last question. We talked a lot about kind of the importance of of how VC is a very people-oriented industry. Building your network is important as well. Are there any kind of like, I want to say like tactical steps towards building and maintaining your network? As you start to meet more and more people, how do you keep those connections fresh and genuine and authentic?
I can jump in here. I think you genuinely have to care about people. Like, it's easier said than done, right? But it's not going to work out if you haven't. I think one thing I started doing when I first started getting into venture and, trying to expand my network is actually keeping an Excel sheet of everyone I used to talk to and, maybe little notes about them, kind of like an own personal Rolodex. And you get to maybe 20, 30, 50 people before you realize that's just not going to work, right? You're going to just be talking to so many founders and so many different people that it makes more sense to care about the people that you want to talk to, right? And sure, you can do this thing where you talk to every single founder that comes across your circle and really, do the best you can to help them. But over time, you're going to realize that sure, things are emotional and, like you would love to help everyone you could, but work is work and you want to fund the founders who are really going to make it. And there are some people who don't have the secret sauce. Some people need to bake, longer in the oven before they're ready to pop out and raise around. So it just makes more sense to care about people, talk with the people that you genuinely would leave your job to go work with. And this is something I realized as well before where, you can keep taking these calls with random founders and trying to send them to other VCs, trying to make a deal hit and some sort of matchmaking service. But if you just connect with founders that you would want to go work for, sooner or later, you're going to have a personal database of all these people that are exceptional founders. And none of them are going to be anything besides the top 1% because you've set such a high bar for yourself that everyone in your network is going to be absolutely stellar. And that's when you've kind of hit it on the nail because at any given point, you can just kind of, pick into the hat and pull out a number, and that number is going to represent someone that you would want to go work for. So long story short, it's just pick founders that you think are going to win and really, do your best to help them out in any sort of way you can, even if you can't help them directly. Like, I'm no perfect designer, but I'm sure that I know 15 that I could reach out to. So if you need, a portfolio company needs a website redesigned, actually take the extra step and make that introduction for them because you don't know how much it's going to help them. And it's maybe like 5 seconds for you. So yeah, just do your best to help all the people that you think are going to win.
Yeah. To add to that, I'd say, like what Yash was saying before, like just do not be transactional in any way, shape, or form. Like it's honestly going to kill your VC career, and also it's just like a shitty kind of thing to do. So I would, and definitely I was, I was one of those people. Yeah, like I mean, I had the personal CRM, whatever. Like I was like, this person's cool, whatever. This person works at this person, this firm knows this person, whatever. Honestly, like I realized my conversations just got so much better once I stopped doing that. Once I stopped, seeing people for their value or whatever. And I'm so guilty of it. Like I'm going to be completely honest, but I stopped that. Like a month into like my internship, realized like damn, like I should not be doing that. And honestly, like everything just improves once you stop viewing people, as, sort of deals and transactions and whatnot. So would definitely say, stay away from that. It's like, be a human, help as many people as you can. Like again, like one intro can change someone's life in the course of their company, to be quite honest. And maybe if your fund won't invest into them, another fund will. Obviously, be intentional about that and, make sure it makes sense. But just know that, maybe like taking one call and giving people advice or, being a mentor to someone, a founder who doesn't have the experience, the resources that, other founders do or whatever it may be, do things like that, these little things, and it will sort of change the, course of like whoever sort of career or whatever it may be. So that's one thing I would say. And just, the byproduct of doing all that is that your network will explode, sort of explode. Sort of like your NPS as an investor will just be really, really good, and people will, refer others to you and whatnot. And again, sort of, you create this flywheel of, having a good reputation and actually being helpful to people. And in return, many people will come to you. So yeah.
I don't know if this answers the question, but something that I really liked in my internship was I got involved in writing theses, like investment theses with the firm. So I wrote things on knowledge management because that's something I mentioned earlier that they like to invest in. So just like predicting what the space of knowledge management will look like in the next 10 years. I also wrote theses on e-commerce and the metaverse. So I think that's something cool that like a good opportunity with VC is you get to also think like an entrepreneur. Like you have to actually. That's for VC, you need to have an opinion on what the future looks like and then fund the companies that will help shape that future. And so as an intern, I got that opportunity to write theses. Like that's how it manifested for me. And I also, because of that, got a lot of feedback from the partners at Floodgate, Anne and Mike, and they would help me shape my theses, which made me a better thinker. So yeah, I think being innovative and creative and really looking at the future, like having a vision of what the future is really fun.
Yeah, everyone really covered everything, but I'm guessing that most of the viewers are students. At every like campus, there's honestly an entrepreneurship hub. And I can't say this enough, but start a company. Like literally just do it. Like there's so many good ideas being like studied on campuses. Find someone to like start something with, or if you want to do it by yourself, just do it. But like full send it and like honestly have a get shit done attitude. And I think that'll bring you wherever you want to go.
Yeah, to add to that, also side projects and side hustles are just as good and effective. If you could just prove you're like a builder and you could bring people towards you, attract capital, customers, coworkers, whatever it may be, it's just always a good sign, and VC firms will really, really appreciate that. I mean, my career started as me writing a book, right? That was sort of like a side project at the time before I got hired to Lux, obviously. And also within Lux, like I'm building working on this biotech company, and I'm meeting tons of other investors, other talent, other researchers, all these people that, again, to go back to the original question, right? It just adds to my network, but also just like you just learn so much, you become a better investor, and all these good things happen. So definitely would recommend doing some sort of building to get into VC.
Okay, I'm just gonna look through the list of some questions that are being sent in from the audience. Feel free, people that are tuning in, to send some more questions as they come up. But I'm seeing one interesting one by Finn Groves. So it sounds like having a lot of ideas and being able to express them is important. I'm interested in what personal knowledge management software you each use, like Evernote, Roam, Obsidian, those type of apps. So curious to get your guys' thoughts on that.
Notion for me.
+1 on that.
Yeah, honestly, Notion.
I think I might be the only person that doesn't have it. I keep everything in my head. It's just constant yelling.
Yeah. Okay. I'm seeing a couple of questions come in that are talking about, as a student with zero experience in VC, how would you land an internship? I feel like we've covered numerous aspects of that question in today's chat, but if maybe one of you could summarize like in a step-by-step, if you had no experience and you never really worked in VC and you want to break in, what would be those concrete steps you would do?
I could answer this. So, all right. So, from the perspective of a student, I guess like I'll sort of integrate what I did, but also just like in general what I see other people do. So, tap into your university network and various networks that you're already a part of. There's tons of startups, tons of founders, tons of talent, all the good stuff through that. Then slowly start expanded, right? Join fellowships, do again work at startups, things like that, clubs, organizations, national kind of things, all that good stuff. Then once you got that, start sort of building your network and sort of your knowledge base and all these different things, right? Maybe specialize in a certain field that you really like, a certain investing theme. Maybe find people that you look up to, other investors, other founders, etc. And then just like start improving your content intake. I like to say like as people obviously say like you are what you eat. I really do think like the content that you sort of intake is also what how you act, how you think, all that good stuff. So start improving those content kind of sources. And once you do all those things, then I feel like you could leverage that for a VC job. Again, it's long. Obviously, it takes a long time. It's not just like those 3 easy kind of steps. But once you start doing all that, right, you got the deal flow, you got some sort of like an investment filter, and again, maybe you have building experience, whatever it may be. Just you're in various networks, all this good stuff. Like it's all accumulates, and maybe I would say that's when you could sort of approach various VC firms. And again, like I said before, like do the job to get the job, right? Write investment memos, make those intros to those investors, like the founders, do various research and into whatever sort of fields, and you just keep doing that over time, and something will sort of hit. So yeah,
I can jump in there, and I think one problem I see in early stage venture, I guess early career venture, is a lot of students are really, really attached with the concept of getting a brand name with their name. So it's like, all right, I'm 19, I'm in college, and I kind of want to go work for a venture firm. They're looking to get a Santo VC like Sequoia, A16Z, get attached to their name right away. So they'll go looking for an internship, a program that they can get affiliated with. And I think, you can slow down and build a network first, where the good thing about venture is the angel investing network is also very, very intertwined there. And to be an angel investor, you need nothing but money, and honestly, not even that. You don't always have to be investing through money. You can be investing through networks or introductions that you can make, etc., where you can be helpful to a founder and build a large network of founders just by leveraging one thing to another. So let's say you have even one friend who started a consumer company that might be mildly successful. You can take that person and run with that, right? Maybe you want to go meet another consumer founder that you kind of don't know, but you want to get to know. You can be like, hey, I don't know if you've gotten the chance to meet this person yet, but they're a fabulous founder. Maybe you should go talk to them, and maybe you can brainstorm ideas. And from there, you now know two people. Two people becomes four becomes eight, and so on. And you can start going industry agnostic and kind of just see wherever people can be most helpful and make the connections there. At the end of the day, you're just going to be doing a lot of matchmaking and trying to find a way you can put two people together and make the most favorable outcome come out of it. So yeah, don't always push for, hey, I need to get involved with A16Z before I can actually become a venture capitalist. Like, you never need a name to become a venture capitalist. You just need to have a network and some tangible skills. And for that, it only takes one person. So get integrated with one or two people in your network, and from there, you're golden.
Anybody else? Okay. We have a couple minutes left, so maybe we'll quickly go over one last question, and then we'll leave some time for any parting words that any of you guys want to share before we close off the session today. So one question is, where do you guys source deals from, and how do you initially identify promising companies to consider for investments?
I could answer this. So in terms of deal flow and everything, it's honestly what I was saying before, right? Like, joining all these communities or things like that, these various networks. It's also building your brand and sort of making people making people know you as whatever sort of thing. Again, people know me as the moonshot guy or the deep tech guy, and so I get tons of deal flow just by people sort of sending me, or even like DMing me on Twitter, just being like, hey, like I'm building this biotech company, whatever. And now that I'm thinking it was one founder, and I'm literally bringing him to Lux this week, or sorry, next week or so, whatever it may be. But so it's honestly focusing on like you could break it down to like inbound and outbound. In terms of inbound, right, creating a brand so people come to you, creating content, building something, whatever it may be. And also in terms of outbound, right, just being associated with various networks, various sort of university clubs and things like that, and honestly just like looking for the right people within those, as well as cold emailing whatever founders you want to talk to. So yeah.
I think the most useful deal flow that I had was seeing what my classmates were building. So yeah, like Arielle said, I think every campus is an entrepreneurial hub. So there's always people, if they're not building, they're thinking about like what to build. And so that is really valuable to VCs. Like, they care about college campuses and what's happening. And yeah, that's it.
Yeah, I don't think I can really talk about how Shopify does deal flow. I think they do it really differently compared to all the other firms. But something that's really cool is literally go to all the demo days of all the accelerators like around the world. And that'll give you a really good idea of like where everything is heading. Also, it's just really interesting and also really funny to see like virtual pitches, like because they can like film them beforehand. They're like really like well like thought out, and like there's a lot of cool stuff. You'll see.
Yeah, for sure. I love everything that people brought up there. I think one thing I've seen a lot at bigger firms where, maybe they have over 20 or 30 employees, they'll actually have designated analysts that are on LinkedIn Sales Navigator 24/7. They're literally just making spreadsheets upon spreadsheets of every single company they found. And sure, you can go that route. But when you get to the point where you're over $1 billion or $2 billion firm, I can promise that a lot of these venture firms, they're doing deals in their email and text messages, right? They have friends at other firms and they're literally just texting each other like, hey, what's a cool company you saw this week? Cool. You mind sending an intro over? Awesome. That's about it. Venture is a very relationship-driven kind of industry, as we've established here. And that doesn't go just between VCs and founders. It also goes between VCs and VCs. It's not just a one-person game, right? There's over $10 or $15 million in a round at any given point. So you can't just fill that yourself. And it's a good idea to be a venture investor who knows a lot of other venture investors. Like in this room, I think everyone now knows each other, right? It's one of those things where you develop those circles and now you can share deals and you can now help other investors out, because sooner or later that's going to come back to you. If you have sharp elbows and you start playing rough with a lot of other investors where you take off, you take the entire round or you don't share deals, that's going to come back to bite you, where you're not going to get any deals, you won't be allowed in any deals, and your reputation is going to tank. At a certain point, I'm basically just saying that the deals will come to you and you don't really have to go hunting anymore. Everything's kind of just going to be sent to you.
Great. I think we can wrap it up there. Are there any last parting thoughts that any of you guys would like to share to students out there trying to land an internship or break into VC before we close off the panel today?
I think there's one big question that everyone wants to ask. Yash, why are you so hot?
Great. So I'd love to wrap this up. So if you guys want to reach out, feel free to do so on Twitter. But yeah, great talking, guys.
All right. Thanks, everyone. Have a great rest of your weekend.
Bye all.